Dun, 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 dun. Who's that secret jungler? Is it Talon? No. Is it Vayne? No. It's fucking Tahm Kench. Alright, let's be serious here though. He's actually a pretty good jungler, at least in my eyes. Like, a long time ago, I called it that he'd be a jungler in the PvE, but that was for a different reason because his W gave him like superior clears. And as you guys know, recently he's been receiving a lot of buffs to him, and he's showing up more often as a top laner and a jungler. Funny story how I kind of discovered him was I was in Champion Select, and then my bottom was going Tahm Kench support, and I was like, no, don't do that shit. And then they're like, oh, who do you want to give me? And I'm like, I'll give you Braum or something, and I gave him Braum. And then I was like, oh god, I'm playing Tahm Kench. I've only played him in a PvE server. But, you know, it actually turned out really well. We won the game and stuff. And I was just like pretty stunned that he was actually a pretty good jungler when it came to the mid game and late game. Now let's talk about his ganks. So he's got a 30% to 70% slow for 2 seconds, or a stun if you have 3 stacks of his passive. But yeah, a 70% slow for 2 seconds on a 6-second cooldown, that's really good for chasing people down, and just incredible CC. On top of that, it's followed up by his W, which suppresses them for a certain amount of duration and spits them out for incredible damage. If you can get these 2 skills off on somebody, they're basically going to be dead. Although he does not have any gap closer, it can be hard sometimes, but he does have his ultimate for that. And this ultimate is good now since they reduced the cooldown of the active. And now the warning particle only appears for enemies when you're in that 0.5 second delay and coming up. Before, it showed the whirlpool, and I think the enemy had like 2 seconds to react to you coming up behind them, but now it's kind of like Twisted Fate's ultimate. Except you can bring a friend, although I never do it because it takes a lot of coordination and I want to get there immediately. But I mean, if you're on comms with someone, or of course like competitive fights, I think in that sense he could be really good. Otherwise, in solo queue, I go by myself, and yes, this is like the only champion who I'd feel like would require a lot of comms because of the ultimate. Well yeah, once he does receive his ultimate, his damage goes up by a lot, and like, he gets a nice power spike, and even more at level 11 and 16, and you'll notice the damage increase on your abilities and basic attacks. And already his Q and W have really good base damage, so just add a percentage of your hit point, and you're good to go. But also, ever since they reduced the cooldown of his ultimate, you notice you can actually use this ability a lot more often than you could before. Like, it actually has a lower cooldown than Pantheon's ultimate, Nocturne's ultimate, and Rengar's ultimate. Ultimates like these should always land you a kill. Another reason why he's a good jungler is because Stalker's Blade synergizes so well with this kit, as it helps you to get in range of your auto attacks to apply that passive so you can eventually devour them. And so with the CC coming from his Q and the Stalker's Blade, he's actually really hard to get away from. And of course you guys know the sole reason of why he's a really strong tank. Because of his E, which basically doubles his health pool in team fights, as it gives you an enormous shield. So if they focus you, they made the wrong choice and now they have to pay for it by, well, using their abilities on you and not for your teammates. Oh, and the way he can save his teammates by letting them come in his mouth and saving them from any kind of death, or perhaps death, is a great way to protect your fed carries. It's also really good when you let someone come in your mouth and you're chasing down people, because you know it grants you extra movement speed and helps you gap close to those enemies. Anyways, I will say he's one of the strongest mid game late game tanks just because of the amount of CC he has, plus his base damage is super strong, and of course his health pool that doubles basically. And he's also a good champion to pick against poke because you know he restores some of his health with his E, and in that case he can just be like, you know, that front line who stands there while his team sieges and blocks all the poke, so it's really nice in that sense. And he's also really good at zoning melee characters because of his W. That will hurt tanks because, you know, it has a really high percent maximum health base damage. In terms of Cinderhulk junglers, I think he's like maybe better than Gragas, but not as good as Rek'Sai. That girl's like just too OP. Some cons of Tahm Kench is that his early game, like pre-6, that's really weak, since he doesn't have that, you know, passive, which gives him a lot of damage. And his clears are pretty average. I mean, his W gives him a lot, but it doesn't work on the buffs, and his E doesn't restore too much health at that point yet. But his ganks are still good because his Q, aka Tongue Fuck, does last for 2 seconds, and his W is really good CC. Although since he doesn't really have any escapes unless an ally is there to give him movement speed with his W, he's definitely vulnerable to getting caught out in some places. And like in that situation, all he can do is survive with his E and hope his teammates do come for backup in that situation. He's also prone to kiting if he doesn't land his skill shots, and in a sense he's a juggernaut type of champion. But yeah, his weak early game makes up for his super strong mid game and late game. As long as he has health, he's going to be a super strong tank. And that's it for the pros and cons. Let's go over the runes, masteries, and item build. For masteries, you can go 921 or you can go 21-9 like me. It's personal preference. I think both work out very well, but if you feel like you want to be more of an early game jungler, you can go 21-9. If you feel like you want to be more of a tanky mid game and late game, then that's for you. For runes, I go attack speed reds, health per level yellows, cooldown per level blues, and armor quints. I think you guys can understand this rune page and how it makes all sense. I don't think there's really any other rune page except for maybe armor yellows, but fuck armor yellows, they nerfed that shit. Next up is going to be item build. As you see, Stalker Blade, Cinder Hulk, Merc Trids or Ninja Tabi, Spirit Visage because of the synergy with your E, and cooldown is just nice, and we got Dead Man's Plate for that momentum building and gap closing faster into enemies. Get Randoons if you gains Ashe or Yasuo. And then we go Banshees, like you just want to go full tank. I wouldn't go Warmogs because we already have health regen with our E, so like 5 points of that plus Spirit Visage is good enough for us. Devour Tahm Kench is fun and makes you like a nice bruiser, but good luck surviving until like 30 minutes where you actually get health items. And health does have really good synergy with Tahm Kench. I know Say Devour also has synergy with his passive, and also his ultimate's passive, but honestly, in teamfights you'll probably get kited the most since you don't really have a reliable gap closer. And that's what your tongue fuck is for trying to eat your way to the champions. For skill order, I get W first, and then I start to prioritize R over Q over W over E. I'm XO Q first because the CC goes from 30% slow to a 70% slow, and that's really strong for ganking. I guess you can go 2 points at a W just for early game jungle clears, because usually in my early game I just farm until I'm level 6, and your W goes up 100 damage on the jungle creeps, but then again your Q also goes up by like 45 base damage per level. So maybe 2 points in W is fine, but once you get your ultimate, start prioritizing Q, because you're going to be a ganking machine. In conclusion, strong mid game and late game. Some pros haven't picked it up or whatever. I've just got my first hand taste of it, and I don't feel like he fits a support role just because I feel like he scales really good with levels. So like there's no point to put him in, you know, that role other than eating your ally and running to the tower. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.
Oh yeah, you gotta get swifty. You gotta get swifty in here. It's time to get swifty. Oh, you gotta get swifty. Oh yeah. Take off your pants and your panties. Shit on the floor. Time to get swifty in here. Gotta shit on the floor.
Okay, he wants to come talk with me.
To pay off my family.
I'll go top with you.
Okay, let's go. Come in my mouth. Come in my mouth.